Welcome back to the Christian I Ching. This lecture is on the numbers, and I'm Roger Sessions. The goal of this unit is to describe how you're going to translate from numbers to line types, because when you do a query, you're not going to be given lines directly, you're going to be given numbers, and you need to know how to translate from a number to a line. As I've talked about in previous lectures, there are three critical pieces of information you need to get when you're receiving a response from the I Ching. You need to know which lines are solid, which lines are open, and which lines are moving. With those pieces of information, you can construct the beginning hexagram, the resultant hexagram, and you already know how to translate once you have a hexagram back into an archetype index. So that's what you need from a response. When you receive a response from the I Ching, you're always going to receive 6 numbers, and the 6 numbers can be any of 4 values. The values are 6, 7, 8, and 9. Each one of those numbers refers to a different line type. So a 6 refers to an open moving line, a 7 refers to a solid static line, an 8 refers to an open static line, and a 9 refers to a solid moving line. So we see that there's each one of these values, with 4 values we can encode any of the different line types. Another way to understand this is that even numbers describe open lines, whereas odd numbers describe solid lines. So the even numbers of those 4 possibilities are 6 and 8, so the 6 and 8 describes open lines. The odd numbers of those 4 possibilities are 7 and 9, so a 7 or a 9 describes a solid line. And then if you think of those lines as being in a sequence, so 6, 7, 8, and 9 as a sequence, the extremes of those describe moving lines, and the interior ones describe static lines. So the highest and the lowest are the extremes. That would be 6 and 9. 6 and 9s are the extremes of 6, 7, 8, and 9. And the middle numbers, 7 and 8, describe static lines. So we're going to receive 6 numbers, any one of which contain four different values. Each one of those values tells us whether it's an open or a closed or a moving or a static line. So again, if we kind of think of it this way, the even numbers refer to open lines, the odd numbers refer to solid lines, and the extreme numbers refer to moving lines, whereas the interior numbers refer to non-moving or static lines. So we need to receive 6 numbers because we have 6 lines in the hexagram, so we need to know what each one of those lines in the hexagram is. Therefore, we're going to need to receive 6 different numbers. Now, how are we going to do that? Well, we're not going to do it with a roulette wheel, but a roulette wheel is kind of a convenient mental image for understanding how this whole thing works. So I'm going to use that just to kind of describe the process. So if you think of a roulette wheel, it has only 4 values on it, 6, 7, 8, or 9, and we're going to spin it 6 times, one for each line in the hexagram. Every time we get a 6, we're going to put down an open moving line, 7 is solid static, 8 is open static, 9 is solid moving. Or again, the odd numbers are solid, the even numbers are open, the extreme numbers are moving, the interior numbers are static. So we always build our hexagram from the bottom up. So the first line is always the bottom line, remember. So the first time we spin it, we're going to spin the wheel, and we're going to get a solid moving line. We're getting a 9, which is a solid moving line. So on our sheet where we're keeping track of the results, we can write a solid line with a little x at the end of it to indicate that it's a moving line. The second time we spin the wheel, we're going to receive another number. And this time, let's say we get a 6. If it's a 6, and now we're on the second line of the hexagram, a 6 is an even number, and it's an extreme number, so it's a open moving line. We spin the wheel again, and it stops eventually on a 9, and that's the third line in our hexagram. So at 9, what is a 9? A 9 is odd, right? Odd numbers are solid, and it's an extreme number, so it's moving. So we put down a solid line with a little x at the end indicating that it's moving. We spin the wheel a fourth time, and eventually it stops, and this time it stops on a 7. The 7 is odd, solid, interior, static. So we put down a solid line, but this time we don't put an X by it. Why no X? Because it's not a moving line, it's a static line. Then we do it the fifth time. This time we get an 8. An 8 is even, open, and it's interior, static. So we put an open line down with no X by it. How many more times do you think we're going to spin the wheel? Well, we have 5 lines and we need 6, so one more time. This time we spin the wheel again, and this time it ends on a 9. A 9 is a odd number. Odd numbers are solid, so we put a solid line down. And it's an extreme number, so it's a moving line, so we put an X next to it. Now we have all 6 of our lines, and we know which ones are moving. So we know the going from the bottom up, it's solid, open, solid, solid, open, solid, with first, second, third, and sixth lines moving. Knowing this, we can construct our resulting hexagram, as we talked about in the previous lecture. So now we know where we're starting from, we know where the moving lines are, and we know what the resulting hexagram is, and we already know how to convert from a hexagram back to an index to lead us to the archetype of which this is the pictogram for. Now, the next question is, we're not going to really spin this imaginary roulette wheel, but what are we going to do? We need to get these 6 numbers from someplace. Where are we going to get them from? Where we're going to get them from is the query stones, and that's what we're going to start looking at next. I'm Roger Sessions. We've gone pretty far in the I Ching now. We know how to ask questions. We know how to translate numbers to hexagrams. We know how to construct resulting hexagrams from starting hexagrams and moving lines. We know something about what the archetype looks for. The next thing that we're going to learn, now we're going to start learning how to use those 52 query stones, or actually 49 query stones. We only use, as you'll see, 49 in the query itself, but I always think of them as a set of 52 because I like to have a few extra just to keep the others company in case something gets lost or chipped. So that's what we'll be looking at next, and I hope you'll join me. I'm Roger Sessions, and we'll continue our journey on how to use the Christian I Ching.